All right, well, before we lose all of our listeners, we might as well make some UFC picks. But, Joe, thank you, man, for coming on, and we appreciate the time today. Let's get right to it. First fight on the main card, Kylan Curran, fresh off of her first UFC win, which was last December. The slightest of favorites here, Kenny. She's at -115. Felice Herrig, -105. Herrig back for the first time since her loss to Paige Van Zandt. That was more than a year ago, April of 2015. So, Joe, we'll start with you. Who are you going here, Curran or Herrig?
I like Herrig, and I know Curran just won her first UFC fight, but I like Herrig's experience. Her kickboxing background definitely plays well. Obviously, she's had 16 pro fights. And I looked at the common opponent between her and Kylan Curran, which is Paige Van Zandt. And I think Herrig definitely had a better showing. She kind of emptied the tank out in the first round, and maybe that hurt her in the fight in the final decision. But I think Curran was kind of bullied that whole fight, and Herrig definitely hung tougher. So I'm going to go with Herrig.
How do you like that?
Anik, where do you find these fans? I mean, these fans know more MMA than I do. I mean, these guys are super. Jesus. Well, he knows his stuff. I like it, Joe. I got respect for your knowledge.
He's going the other way.
I am going to go the other way. I'm going to go with Curran. I got to. I think that Herrig is very good, and that her skills have not really been the question necessarily. It's always been kind of her mental game, her mental approach. She kind of. I don't know. She seems to be a little bit of a head case sometimes when she fights, and for that, I think she's going to be a little bit. She's too inconsistent as a fighter, and I'm going to go with Curran. I think Curran has kind of found her groove now in the UFC. She's fighting more consistent herself, and I'm going to go with Curran.
All right, Kylan Curran as the slight favorite, the pick for Ken Flo. I like that we're on the underdog there, Joe. Let's move on now. Co-main event: Edson Barboza, Kenny. -215 against the returning Gilbert Melendez, who is +180. So Melendez, just 2 fights since October of 2013, out since the Eddie Alvarez fight. That was June of last year at UFC 188. And Barboza has been about as active as any guy on the roster and has won a lot since. I think deserves to be installed as about a 2-1 favorite here. Kenny, which way you going, Barboza or Melendez?
I'm going with Edson Barboza, a guy that if you looked up how to throw every single strike, Barboza would be performing all of those things. He's so technically sound. Everything he does is perfect. He moves faster than maybe any lightweight out there. His leg kicks are going to be, I think, a key to his victory against someone like Gilbert Melendez. He has to stop the takedown, of course, but I think Barboza is going to be too fast and too dynamic for someone like Gilbert. I think that layoff is going to hurt him. Love Melendez, but I don't love the matchup for him.
All right, Joe, who do you like there? You like Barboza or you like Melendez in this returning spot?
So when I was breaking down this fight, I tried to think of any possible method that Melendez could win the fight, but I truly just couldn't find one. Barboza, in my opinion, is the fastest pound-for-pound fighter on the roster.
Yeah.
And his switch kick is unbelievable. I've never seen anything like it. And I don't see how any way Melendez is going to win this fight. It's amazing to me this is only his 5th fight in the UFC, and he's obviously been off over a year. This is a real tough one for El Nino. So I got to go with Barboza. His striking is just on another level.
Yeah, I would agree with you there. 11 UFC wins already for Edson Barboza. Fought 3 times in 2013, 3 more 2014, 3 more 2015. This already his 2nd start of the year. Fought Anthony Pettis not that long ago in April at UFC 197. Last finish for Edson Barboza, July of 2014 against Evan Dunham. So Barboza, I think he's a guy who eventually is going to climb that ladder and at least get into a UFC title fight. Got to have this one against the former Strikeforce champion, Gilbert Melendez. All right, finally, main event, Holly Holm, -310 as she returns for the first time since the title loss to Miesha Tate. Valentina Shevchenko at +255. So this, of course, the main event. We need a method of victory and a round as well. Joe, main event, Holly Holm or the underdog Valentina Shevchenko?
I'm going with Holly Holm, but I do think this is going to be a lot more of an interesting fight than the odds makers suggest. Everybody talks about Shevchenko's striking background, but she's got more submission victories than she does knockouts, which is definitely interesting. And when she fought Sarah Kaufman, she took the fight to the ground most of the fight. And she was holding her own against the current champion, Amanda Nunes, on the ground. So I think from what we saw with Holly's ground game, Don't know how much it's developed since UFC 196. If Shevchenko can get this fight to the ground, she has a significant advantage. Both of them are kind of counter strikers, but I do definitely give Holly a significant advantage on the feet. I will go with Holly. I'm going to go with a split decision.
Split decision for Holly Holm. I just love the conviction, though, behind that answer. Method of victory, just right there. Kenny, I know you're going Holly Holm here, aren't you? But I just need round and method of victory from you.
Joe, that's an excellent breakdown, and I agree with you, man. Shevchenko can win this fight. She threw Sarah Kaufman around very easily throughout that fight. She could potentially do the same thing, get the respect with her striking, get into clinch range and throw Holly around and maybe outpoint her. But I do think Holly is extremely motivated and been training very hard to improve what she did in her last fight against Misha. I think she really needs this fight, and I think we're going to see the best Holly Holm we've ever seen. I think she will win this fight by decision, and she's got to look to counter, get in and out, use her size to thwart those takedown attempts from Shevchenko, and avoid those leg kicks as well. For Shevchenko, if I'm facing someone like Holly Holm who moves a lot, I'm going to try to slow her down with leg kicks and body shots. Yeah. So she's going to have to be careful with that. I think Holly Holm gets it done. I think she does it in impressive fashion, but by decision.
Interesting main event and a high-stakes main event when it comes to the women's bantamweight title picture. Just a little bit overshadowed by International Fight Week, but good main event coming up on Fox Saturday night. Joe Lipovich.